Just a gentle note before we begin. Today's conversation includes discussion of stress, burnout, and survival mode. Please listen in a way that feels supportive for you. You're welcome to pause and come back at any time. For a lot of caregivers, the appointment is the part you plan for, but the after is the part no one prepares you for. You get back into the car or walk back into the house and your body is still holding the whole thing. The adrenaline, the fear, the uncertainty, the did I say that right? The what now? And then life expects you to go straight back into dinner, laundry, work, other kids' medication schedules, as if your nervous system didn't just do something intense. So today's conversation is for the caregiver who looks fine on the outside, but feels shaky, wired, numb, or flooded after medical appointments and hospital days. My guest is Lolita Guarin, a stress management expert, speaker, online program teacher, and 6-time Amazon #1 best-selling author. Lolita created the CALM process, a practical framework that helps people lower stress and rebuild self-trust in ways that fit real life, not ideal life. Lolita, welcome to Radiant Moments.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Lolita, I'd love to begin with your story because you didn't build this work from theory. You've shared that you normalized stress for a long time, rebuilding your life and career, carrying pressure to overperform. What did stress look like for you back then?
So for those who are listening in, they may already start thinking, where is she from? Because as you can tell, English is not my first language. My first language is Lithuanian, and I came to United States 26 years ago. And I came for my American dream because I heard there are money trees all around growing. So you just go and grab your dollars and you run. But I knew already that's going to take not just courage, changing the country and language. And I didn't know anyone in the country as well, but I knew it will take a hard work. And I worked overtime, barely had any time even to take lunch, eat just whatever, pizza, donuts, whatever was in the break room, working for everyone else. I had no boundaries. I was people pleaser, and I was trying to please everyone and my family and friends and prove to everyone and myself that I totally can do this. This is going to be great. Look at me go. Also, I came from ethics of I need to be a very good worker from my family. My parents were very hard workers. And so I was not even paying attention how stressed out I was. I thought that just comes with the package. For all of those who are listening in, I'm not really saying anything new. This is how our life is, especially if you live with other people. And on top of that, that you need to take care of other people. And maybe in your family, your kids, aging parents, or someone that you care, or is your work related, your caregiver that's what you do. It's nothing new. We're all overperforming, pushing ourselves. So it's kind of like, well, I don't have enough sleep, but who does have enough sleep these days? Then, okay, well, I'm dehydrated because, well, naturally, I don't think that's important. Good nutrition. Okay, I don't have time to cook for my meals. What are you talking about? The gym? The only gym I was going to the ladies' restroom, right? That's the only exercise for today. And it kind of comes like this busyness, like a default. In our society, it's all about the performing. So it's not like anything different from any other high-functioning society member, no matter what country we're in. It's just that's how we need to do it, and we have to push it. But where my body said is enough is when I was still in my 30s, and I end up on the kitchen floor because I just collapsed. When I went to the emergency room, the doctor told me that I was so stressed out that it's good that they came that day. Otherwise, the next morning would have been too late. And for those who are listening in and thinking, oh my gosh, you cannot die from stress. Well, the problem was that over those years, I kept on pushing myself to the point that my hormones didn't like that. And any woman knows, women and hormones, you need to be best friends. And I basically almost bled to death. And that was the wake-up call. And that's when I needed to really start paying attention. What is that I do every day? And I started doing simple things like we already know about stress and burnout, what they call right now as a stress management bandages.
Mm-hmm.
take a walk, sleep well, have good nutrition, breathe in, breathe out, meditate, write diaries, all of those things. And I did start doing that. I got much better with time management, start saying no to people, and it really improved my health. And I became a stress management coach because, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about helping people. But then there was some part missing. And I finally discovered what it was. Right now we're talking, and let's say we're in the same room. The door is closed, so we don't see the hallway. And then we hear some people arguing. You and me will take it very differently. I may get triggered right away and feel like I'm in danger. You may feel like, oh, they're just talking about the football game that they saw yesterday. So we can breathe whatever we want, but there is something really deep down that is causing us to react and stress out and how we see the rest of our lives. And then that hit me when I was reading the book about how to get coaching clients. That was like at the beginning of my coaching career. And the author mentioned that she was an adult child of alcoholic. I never heard that terminology before. And it turned out that her father was alcoholic. And then I realized, wait a minute, my dad was alcoholic too. Many days he will be very functioning alcoholic, just he goes to work, everything's fine. But the moods, the emotional neglect, many times he will come back drunk and will be violent. And I didn't have brothers and sisters, so it's me and him the moment when he comes back. Then my mom comes back from work, then then they argue, and then I realized that a lot of our stress, and not only stress, like everything else, how we do in life, it really depends what did we learn in our childhood and what kind of childhood traumas we experienced. And for those who are listening in now and immediately getting triggered and telling themselves, I grew up in an amazing childhood. I was so loved and appreciated. I don't need to listen to this interview anymore. The thing is, human experience already starts with a huge trauma of separation when we're being born. So it's not that I want to say everybody's broken, although that's how I felt. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm broken. That's it. I'm done. No, I want to say that we need to remind ourselves that whatever that we do that has to do with stress management or when we're dealing with other people and caring about others, it really depends on what did we learn about the care and the stress management and everything else in life. And usually those are the patterns that we learn from our parents and our neighborhood and our teachers and our culture, and depending even where you live. Let's just ask yourself a question. Do you think you will be exactly the same person that you are right now if you were born in a different family? You probably have different interests. Maybe you will still like painting and music, but maybe you will know that you should not show your ankles. Maybe you should not wear shorts because in your family they didn't like shorts. And here you go, you are just running around half naked and you have no problem with that. I'm going to extremes here. So a lot that has to do with self-care. It really has to do where we're coming from. And that's when I realized when we acknowledge that the stress management, the burnout, the self-care, self-love, all of this becomes very different than we originally thought of just breathe and write a novel. So there's deeper roots into this. And then when I started coaching my clients and getting deeper now into, and I do speaking engagements, and even if I talk about stress management in the workplace, where I do lots of presentations, we still talk a lot about what did you learn in your childhood that is working or not working for you right now. And that's how I also invented my calm process. I will be happy to talk about that and talk about simple steps, how we can implement that. But I also say stress management should not be stressful.
I like that you're taking it from a holistic point of view. It's not surface level. You're actually going deeper into our pre-programming that impacts how we naturally respond from our life experiences, not just from the here and now. The here and now might be the acute moment of where we've hit our boundary or hit our wall and we've reached burnout, but also then what is the underlying narrative that's been created that builds on every one of our experiences. And I really like how you talked about if we were in the same room and something was happening, that I would respond differently to how you would respond. And I wanted to find out about, when did you realize your work needed to be simple and compassionate because overwhelmed people can't add more complexity to their life?
When I realized that I need to take care of myself more, somebody said, you just need to love yourself. And I thought I'm going to punch that person or any other podcast or any book, when you're already stressed out and burnout, and then you start reading about you should take bubble baths and you should treat yourself with a manicure and pedicure. It actually triggered me more. And I realized why. It is because when I grew up in the environment where I didn't feel good enough, when I was not appreciated and seen for who I am, when I came from this environment of thinking, I have to produce. I have to take care of my mom. I need to take care of my dad. I need to take care of the emotional and mental state so I feel safe. Producing, performing, and over pushing myself to the constantly go, 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 and not even allowing myself to rest. That was my survival. That is that little child inside of me is keep on pushing myself until my body said, okay, you cannot do this anymore. So when somebody says you need to love yourself more, it's triggering so much for a lot of us. Or that we need to do more. Because it's like, come on, I'm already doing everything I can. Are you telling me I'm still not good enough? I'm already trying my best to take care of myself. I'm already sacrificing myself for other people. Maybe those are your patients that you go to see every day. Maybe it's your family member. Maybe your kids, your aging parents. It doesn't matter. Any other human, even could be a pet. But you keep on giving out this energy. And it's like, did you just tell me that I'm still not doing good enough? And it got so depressing. It got hopeless because I thought, man, I'm not even doing that good enough. And that hopelessness, that's not what we need to be. So number one thing, when I talk with someone, they say, my doctor told me I need to get on this pill or do something and I don't want to do pills. So, and I tell them, okay, can you do like 1 minute, take a break? And taking a break, everybody heard about that. And for those who are listening in right now, I have a test for you. You will answer, there's no yes or no. It's about how it make you feel. So pay attention to this. So when I tell you now, say, okay, every hour, put an alarm on or use any app. And if it's safe for you, if you're not driving or taking care of someone, just take 1 minute break. Just stop whatever you're doing. Just close your eyes and just relax. Did you listen what you just tell yourself? Did you tell yourself, this is stupid? 1 minute is not going to help me. I need like at least a month of doing nothing. Or you said, well, what kind of stupid advice is this? This is so simple. Because you think stress management, it has made such an impact in your life that you feel that the solution also needs to be very big and heavy. Also, there's a lot of triggers that come with this question, a lot of shame and guilt of even giving that 1 minute for yourself because you've been taught as a child that how dare you? How dare you to love yourself? Because it's about the martyrdom. It's about that you need to sacrifice yourself. And I mean, when you look around in any city big enough, you will have a statue of someone who sacrificed themselves.
That's very true.
So our society is built of you need to kill yourself in order to survive. And because we human beings, we belong to the herd. We the tribe people. We are afraid to be excluded. So we will continue hurting ourselves in order to belong. And what I've seen a lot of with the high achievers and anyone who is taking care of somebody else, when they don't take care enough of themselves, it is because they're afraid that they will be excluded from the group, and hence they're going to die, because our brain is all about survival, that they rather not even take care of themselves and sacrifice and give, because this is how they contribute. And those who are familiar with the Dr. Gabor Mate work, he talks a lot about, probably I pronounced his name wrong, so I apologize, but he talks a lot about the childhood traumas. And he said, is if someone grew up in the family where they were not loved and appreciated and seen as someone amazing and given enough attention and affection for who they are, just as a child, without performing, without producing. When they grow up without that part, they feel that the only one way how they can survive and belong to that group and be safe, to that family unit, it's when they perform. And so a lot of high achievers, those who are taking care of others, they feeling ashamed and they feel very, very triggered. When you tell someone, you need to take care of yourself more, you need to love yourself more. It's like basically double killing yourself of saying, I'm already trying to do my best. I don't have a bandwidth to do more. Don't tell me I need to read another book or sign up for another program. I mean, the funniest of all is like, everybody needs to take from 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean, especially if you have kids.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? So you see, there's a lot of those things that we should do. My approach is we should not do that. That is triggering us more. The point that we need to do is honor ourselves and our needs without shame and guilt. And when I see someone who comes to me and they say, I am so stressed out, my doctor told me I need to take care of this, and I tell them, take that 1 minute, and this is my test. Like, I start from that. And then I see how triggered they get with this. I say, okay, and here's the problem with those givers. They say, you don't understand. I have 2 businesses to run. I have to take care of my 3 kids. I have my aging parents. And now you tell me I need to do something nice for myself? I don't have time for this. And then the only one thing what I say is this: who is going to take care of that business, or those kids, and all those aging parents, or your patients, all of your passions that you do when you will be sick in the hospital? Who's going to do it?
No one does it the way you do it.
And that's the point of, we heard a million times of, you need to take care of yourself before you take care of others. You need to fill your own cup so then you can pour to others. But there's so much shame about doing this, and guilt, and that victimhood. That is when we really need to think about, it's not even about us at the end of the day. So when you look at your child, when you look at your patient, anyone that you're taking care of, you think this is 50-50. I'm going to pour into my cup so I can pour it to you. And that helps a lot of those who come from this shame of, I should not take care of myself. There is something else that is very important that I always pointed out. And, when we ask someone to do something, take care of themselves, and they're not used to do that, it takes a lot of courage. Why? Because it's breaking the loyalty to the old patterns. It's breaking the loyalty to your identity that used to be stressed out, used to not taking care of themselves, used to not do all of those things that you talk in your podcast, and now suddenly is going to become somebody else. And we're afraid to be abandoned. So we're afraid what our friends will say, what our clients will say, what our patients will say, the kids will say, everybody else will say. When I will start taking care of myself, I will become a different person. And I don't want them to look at me and say, ooh, I don't like you anymore. That's where a lot of change happens. And I'm sure you heard the saying, we're afraid of success.
Yes.
But basically, we're afraid of change because what is the others going to tell us? I don't want to leave people behind. It's, the same like, if they're a group of friends and one of them starts exercising and getting in a better shape, others thinking they're getting very triggered, but they're like, oh my gosh, now she's going to run off and we were not going to be good enough for her to hang around. It's all about that fear and not breaking the loyalty, especially when we grow up in our families and our environments, that the loyalty is very important. So that's why I encourage for those who want to change, and we can talk about all kinds of exercises and tips and tricks that we need to do, but it really depends after someone to really decide that they will have enough courage to actually start doing something different and realize, why do I don't want to do something different? And it doesn't have to be so complicated. We can talk about very small, simple steps that we can do that will still include the doing. You can buy as many cookbooks as you want, but just because you bought a good cookbook about healthy food, the dinner is not going to arrive on your table. You still need to cook. So somebody who's right now listening into your podcast, they can say, oh yeah, I just love everything that they're saying. Well, this is great, but guess what? You still need to take care of yourself.
I really feel like, because caregivers don't need a perfect routine, they need something that meets them where they are. And I think the way you're approaching or discussing how burnout and stress comes about, and the fact that it's okay to acknowledge that you feel guilty, that you feel shameful about taking time out. That's like the first point of recognition that things aren't going according to plan, that you need to take a moment and reflect. And that's even the first step, just taking the time to reflect whilst you're making a cup of tea, sitting down, cooking. Stacking it on something that you do every single day means that you're not adding to your already complex workload as a caregiver. And I want to name something many caregivers feel ashamed of. They think, why am I still rattled hours later? Why do appointments and hospital visits leave the body activated long after the event is over? What happens in the nervous system? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
All comes to a feeling of responsibility. There's no any emotion, we need to process it. First of all, nobody explained us or taught us how to process emotions, especially what we call the negative ones. When, let's say, you feel, oh, I should have done this differently. You have responsibility that I need to be this person and I feel like I am not. Maybe I forgot something and how I can support this person now, and maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. All of this comes from not feeling confident enough. And a lot of times when we're not confident enough, it's also we learn not to be confident. That's why we need to teach ourselves to have trust. So when I say why it's very important to build trust with yourself, so you can help yourself no matter what situation. You could be coming out from appointment, you could be dealing with something that is every day in and out. This is the beautiful thing, I believe, is when you start taking care of yourself and your needs, even for 1 minute, you showing to yourself in your nervous system that I am not abandoning you, I am here for you. Everything is going to be okay. And by giving it to yourself, you build trust in yourself, then you can enable to help yourself. So then over time, you build the trust in yourself that you can handle no matter what will come in the future. When you think about it, stress and burnout, we afraid what's going to happen in the future because we based what happened to us in the past. And then if we don't feel courageous enough of thinking, I screw up this last time, so I'm definitely going to screw up again. But when you start building the trust in yourself and you say, no, I'm not going to abandon myself. And this is one of the things I recommend. Just think about it. There's so many situations in your life that it looks like the worst is going to happen, but you still manage. That's why I recommend anyone to write a list of those instances and then remind yourself when you start catastrophizing, when you start, spinning, of thinking, I could have done this better, this is not going to work, or you're like in the middle of a process somewhere and you think, the worst thing is going to happen. I don't know how to manage this. This is so painful. I want to be for this person, but I don't think I'm going to give enough. And you have all of those thoughts running. This is the time for you to pick up that list and remind yourself that you were already in the situations like that, but you survived. And maybe you still lost someone, maybe you still didn't deliver, but guess what? You learned something from there. And what you really need to do is give yourself courage. And for those who know, on your question is like, when you leave from some stressful situation, the body keeps on that emotion because we're not addressing that emotion. But also we are not addressing the fear of abandonment, that we did wrong, that we didn't deliver enough, we're not good enough. And that's basically your inner child. We all have the mother, the father, and the child on all of us. That is what the child needs to be regulated and told everything is okay. You'll be fine. And encouraging yourself is very, very important. And I listened to the episode on your podcast that just recently was released. And it's like, talk to yourself as a best friend. But here's the problem with this. We all know we are not our best friends. We're like the worst our enemies. So if I need to say, you did a great job today to your friend, you have no problem to tell them, come on, you're doing great, take a break. But when it comes to yourself, well, no, because you should be working more, you should be pushing more. How dare you to take a rest? So we need to address our inner child when we come out from those situations. And we need to tell ourselves that we're doing great, that everything is going to be okay. Remember how it was before, and you manage, you didn't die, because this is what we're afraid of. I mean, it sounds like, oh, how dare she say such a thing, but that's our brain. It's all about survival. And the sad part is that we do a lot of things in our life that hurting us because we want to survive. Continuously following the same patterns and what other people tell us to do, and we think this is the right thing to do, although it's not really working against us. And, there are two things that I want to say that came to my mind that I don't want to forget about this. I read the whole book about why stress is good for you, or something like that. And I just remember this, so I don't have the years or the names of the researchers. But so there was a group of doctors, and they were working with the cancer patients, and they were surgeons, and every week they will come to this meeting group and they will commiserate about my work is stressed out, burnout, and they will talk how many hours they work. And there was a lot of guilt and shame that had to do with those experiences where they didn't feel like they did enough, that they were incompetent. So there will be conversation like, well, I had the patient and I did surgery, but guess what? They lived only 1 more month and they still died. Well, obviously that's not helping, right? It's like you're getting more into sadness and hopelessness. So then they separated this one group into two groups. And group A, they continue doing exactly the same thing. And then the group B being told to change point of view about things. So instead of saying the patient lived only a month and it still died, they said, how about you look at it from the positive point of view, find that silver lining in there, and say, the patient lived a whole month longer because of me. And I helped the family to get their things in order, to say goodbye to whatever they needed to. And then be proud of that. I'm saying, I helped someone to live a whole month longer. It's all about how you look at things so the things change. What I liked from those researches that they were done, but the point was that when, let's say, you realize that you are stressing about a situation that you are afraid that you're not performing, or you even feeling ashamed of giving to yourself, or you're in the situation when you need to take care of your children, you don't have any more to give. And then you feel like, I really want to give more, but then you're like, I just can't do this anymore. And then you feel so hopeless because it's like, I'm going to produce this. The advice was given is that you need to put the meaning that has to do from a point of view of it is bigger than you. When someone is a caregiver and they're taking care of their patients, they have to remind themselves, I did my best today to really look at after that person today. And they got to go outside because I pushed them out. So don't look at yourself as I didn't do enough, but actually look what you already did. And you impacting their life. The same even goes for kids. It says somebody, a mother who never goes to work, she 100% of the time, everything, her own kids at the house, she should look at them and say, I am helping to grow a human being. I'm supporting him or her right now, this moment, that they may change the world. I'm providing them the best support that I can so they can go on and have their own kids or have whatever life and the shine they light. So the point is about bringing that positive in there. And for those who are listening in, if you are somewhere where you are not driving, or maybe you can stop your car, but anywhere, get in front of a mirror. And those who are listening in, they can pause and get yourself a mirror, okay? You look at yourself right now. You repeat after me. You can tell it in your mind, okay? But have an intention. You look at the mirror and yourself and say, you are doing great. You are doing the best you can. You're doing awesome. It's been before. You can do this again. You are enough. You are strong. You can take care of yourself. It's all good. And this is one small thing, how you're really talking to your inner child and saying, you're safe. I'm here. I'm with you. You'll be fine. So even you come back from a hospital and have an appointment and somebody says something, how about you look at the mirror? When you're driving the car, you sit and you look at it. And you make yourself an intention. Every time when you look at the mirror, you're going to remind yourself, you're doing great. And that doesn't take that much. But you are soothing your own needs, or you're soothing your inner child of saying, I'm here with you. I'm not going to abandon you. And that is overriding all of those insecurities and triggers and having compassion towards yourself. And then talk to yourself, I feel like I'm ashamed of really taking care of myself. And say, no, I'm doing the best I can. And the best advice is stop doing. Take just 5 minutes, sit and do absolutely nothing. So honor yourself and your needs so you can take care of others.
When you're talking about acknowledging yourself, being proud of what you have accomplished so far, so that the narrative shifts from you are not enough, you're not doing enough, you are not performing the way that you should, I believe and feel that investing in uplifting your soul, uplifting your mind and your thoughts really is the building block that helps us to move out of burnout, to help us move away from the shame and the guilt. And I know caregivers often have to perform competence in the room. So remembering information, advocating for the person that they're caring for, ensuring that they stay calm so they don't be seen as combative. What does that cost our body?
So any emotion that is not being processed and any tension that we hold, especially when it becomes chronic, because you're in the position when you constantly need to be on edge, constantly need to be focused, it's straining the body off that you cannot relax. And also when you continuously doing this without releasing all this, then it keeps in the body, and then we ourselves become sick. But at any stressful situation like this, we always need to ask ourselves, what is the worst thing that can happen? Mm-hmm. And then prepare for that. So, for example, if let's say, you're doing your best and You're afraid that you will say something wrong, or you will not ask something, or you will not be seen competent enough. For those who are taking care of others, they already being seen as an authority by default. Okay? Just look at the children. They're gonna look at mommy and daddy as an authority by default. Somebody who is in the hospital, nurse, anyone, even someone who's just sitting and taking down their names, doesn't even have a degree, nothing. They already the authority by default. So we already have a starting point as we being seen as someone that we know what we're doing. And that also brings the pressure of thinking I have to be that person that they think I am. But also, what is the worst thing that can happen? You're going to forget something. But you always can follow up with a question. You can ask the colleague, what do you think you should do? And asking a question and not being afraid to look like a fool because they will think something badly about me. No, you know that if you will ask a question and if you say that, well, I don't know about this, but I'm going to check it out, I'm going to ask someone else about that. You show that you're vulnerable, you're human, you're not afraid to make a mistake because you want to take care of it. You're not going to fool anyone. People look at you differently because they know, oh, I can trust that person. We all know we're not perfect. So if you say, I'm going to ask you this question, although you feel like I should not be asking this, but I'm still going to ask you, shows that you are human. And then we relate to each other. So that in a way, you're giving comfort to someone. Let's say you become more human to a patient. They will feel like you supporting them more by also being a human. Instead of having this separation, here's somebody with authority and here's somebody who depends on that authority. It just becomes so mechanic and robotic that we lose the humanity in that. So the more we allow ourselves to be human, and maybe I will ask you later, and what's the worst that can happen? Let's say you forgot to ask some question. We don't live in the mountains. I mean, maybe even we live in the mountains, but you still have probably a cell phone. You can call them later and ask. And not to be afraid to say that, yeah, I made a mistake. I forgot this. That is okay. Because just look at yourself in that situation and say, what if I would be taken care of by this person? And they told me that they forgot this. What would they say? I would say, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Now let's move on. Let's fix this, right? So giving yourself permission to just be human and having grace, because we will be grateful for others. Like we will say, okay, yeah, I get it. So give that grace to yourself as well.
It's such a relief to hear because caregivers often blame themselves for having a nervous system, for being on high alert, for constantly being at the ready, and that guilt that comes from being fully prepared and then being in a room, for example, where a doctor is rushing because they're running behind, you haven't seen them for 12 months, and they're not open to hearing what is happening because they have stress and pressure. But in that moment, we don't recognize that their dismissiveness in the moment may not have anything to do with our presence in the room, but that definitely filters through to us as caregivers, to the patient as well. At times they can feel dismissed as well. And I think when we come back home, we can have racing thoughts, irritability, tearfulness, sheer bone deep exhaustion, or absolutely nothing, just feeling completely numb and shutting down. And I think when we get home, or we're in the car and we have these sudden crashes because our nervous system is on high alert, because we feel like we have to be on. We can't show vulnerability. If we burst into tears, we're seen as not being able to manage. If we're assertive, they say that we're aggressive and combative. So you having to navigate all of these different personalities, all of the different ways that they interact and they deliver the information that you're coming to obtain. And so when caregivers get home and suddenly crash, or they can't speak, or they feel really snappy at everyone around them, how can they meet that moment with compassion instead of self-judgment?
Talk to themselves, to the inner child. And the most important part is not to abandon yourself that moment. So when we will look at ourselves and say, oh, you didn't do enough, that is abandoning yourself. That's continuously judging yourself. So you should accept yourself no matter what it is. The emotions usually works if you just acknowledge what's happening. You can say, okay, I feel very frustrated right now, or I feel just so burned out right now. I feel like a failure. You say, okay, I feel like this, and then you identify those emotions. And then when you label them, and the research was done that the moment when you label the emotion, it becomes separate from you. So then you can take care of that emotion. That itself, doing the process and allowing yourself to be in whatever you are and what you feel that moment, is not abandoning yourself. That is honoring your needs to experience whatever you're feeling. It's kind of giving yourself permission. It's giving your inner child permission to throw a tantrum or to be annoyed or will cry. And especially if we grow up in the environment where we're being told, suck it up, stop crying, don't be annoying, what are you talking about, shut up and sit down. All that thing where we've been abandoned as children, our emotional needs, we learn to do this to ourselves. Then when we're adults, we say the same thing to our inner child. When you get back home and you're in the safe environment, you allow your inner child to come out, because that's actually the part of you that got triggered. And you allow the child just to behave the way they want to behave without telling yourself, oh no, I shouldn't think this way. And there's nothing should be done there. Just allow yourself to be you and say, I'm just feeling so annoyed and or stressed out or burnout. And here's the way also differently the women and men handle stress. As a women, we need to feel included in a group. That's why we like being with friends. And did you notice how women usually just sit and vent, about their problems? And all they do is just complain. No, that's how we handle stress. That's how, when we talk it out, we acknowledging those emotions, we're putting labels on them, and then we feel that the other person is listening. We're being seen and validated. And that itself, just talking through it already helps. So someone who comes back home, they can just talk to themselves. And already research being done that those people who talk to themselves out loud, they're already doing better because you're not abandoning yourself. There are multiple levels that you can do. That doesn't have to be so complicated, but please don't abandon yourself. And even if you abandon yourself, it's okay. I remember when I started my healing journey, I was like, okay, I'm going to be very good. And I am not going to be angry. I'm not going to be annoyed. So then something happened and I got angry at something. And then I got angry at myself that I got angry because I'm a stress management coach. I'm not supposed to be doing all those emotions, And then I started laughing at the end. I'm like, no, I should honor myself. If I want to get angry, I should get angry. So do whatever it feels to you. But also, here's the thing, find something that works for you. Also, if you don't know what it is, and then one of the exercises I ask my clients is to do something that you love every single day. Now, those who are listening in, they already got triggered. I can tell right away, because it's like, no, I cannot give anything to myself, right? We already talked about the martyrdom, but also it's great, but I don't have time and money to go to beach. No, I'm talking about something very simple that you can do that doesn't take time or money or anything. So, for example, somebody can say, well, I love reading books, but I don't have time for this. How about if you just read one page? And even if you read every day, even if you tell yourself, you find something that you like, say, I love reading books and I'm going to read it when I have time. That itself already is not abandoning your needs, but honoring it. And then when you give yourself more, you build that trust that you cannot abandon yourself. You will do this. But when you have a reward, you see your inner child. You say, let's play, let's do something. So when you do something even smaller, just drink a cup of coffee and just do nothing. Just drink it for 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be so complicated. The least complicated is the better. But even giving yourself 1 minute and allowing yourself just to be in that and finding something, whatever works when you're all stressed out and burn out, try different things, especially those who grow up in the environment where they want to please other people. They have difficulty of finding something that works for them. It's like I'm saying, okay, do something that you love. And you're like, I have no idea what it is, because you've been never told what it is, because you've been told what you need to do. So that's mean you will need to try out different things and see what works for you and make a list if that comes. And even just taking your phone and watching funny cat videos. I don't know, whatever that is, just giving that little break and allowing yourself really to do something.
And I think If we pivot slightly and make this incredibly practical, if someone is listening in the car right now after an appointment, what can they do? What's your first principle for recovery after high stress medical moments? What matters most?
I think it's very important to address few things that happen. So most of the time, the mind starts running. If you can repeat affirmation to yourself or read something from whatever you want to. For example, I'll just repeat one sentence. I am calm, collected, and in control. You repeat the same sentence over and over. That just has a positive feeling in there. By that, you're not allowing any other thoughts to come and hijack with a negative self-talk. Then it's very important to have physical touch. You notice probably when children are upset, if somebody gets mommy, 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 and they run for the hug. We naturally feel we need that physical touch. So if you just even touch your shoulders and your arms, even if you're somewhere in the meeting, you can even touch your fingers. But that physical touch sends the signal to the brain that you are safe. That reminds us also when you were a child that you were embraced. So that physical touch adds on to this. Another thing, let's say someone, let's say, sitting in the car and they hyperventilating and they're like, I don't know how I'm going to stop this. Especially when we get anxious, then we get more anxious because we don't know how to stop that anxiousness. Also, a very good exercise is to breathe as you're breathing through a straw. Imagine you have a straw and then you puff up your lips and you do deep breathing through a straw. And it slows down your breathing. That's mean the heart starts beating slower because it knows, okay, I'm safe, I don't need to run. And then your brain gets more oxygen. So even small things like this that you can do all at once, it really takes away from your spiraling downwards. And then when you gain control over your body and your mind, then you can start thinking more of, then you can start talking to yourself and say, yay, well, that's the best that I can do now. And this is great. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst thing is happen. I'm going to come back. I'm going to call them. I can always quit this job. I can find something else and then try something like talking yourself out of this. But the beauty of this is the more you'll start helping yourself and not abandoning your needs and supporting yourself, the easier it will get. Next time when you have this appointment and you leave, you already be more in trust with yourself that you can handle it, that you will not be so stressed out anymore. And I think that is the biggest tool that you gain trust in yourself that you can handle no matter what it will be thrown at you. That's important.
So you're talking about compounding 3 habits so that they are able to help you to reset if you're in hyper or low mode after an appointment. So using your breath by breathing through pursed lips so that you are calming the vagus nerve. You're using physical touch on yourself, whether that's squeezing your fingers, touching your shoulders, squeezing your knees, so that you're reinforcing that you are safe, that you are here, and that you actually are able to focus on something tactile. And then the third was to activate the brain by using very simple, concise affirmation and repeating that affirmation over and over until you feel reset. Did I understand that, what you explained to us? Just so that
Yes.
the listeners can have that reinforced. What do you recommend when the mind is looping? Did I ask the right question? What if it's worse than they're saying? How do you interrupt that without gaslighting yourself?
So the worst thing to do is to negate whatever you're experiencing and saying, no, 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 then prepare for the worst. Ask yourself the question, what is the worst thing that can happen? And if you can write it down, that's even better. I think I heard about this from Brian Tracy, and it works magic, at least for me and my clients, because that's what we're afraid of. And we're stressing out because we don't know what's going to happen and we don't know how we're going to do this. And so when you tell yourself, okay, let's imagine what's the worst thing that can happen, and then say, okay, what I'm going to do about that if that's comes through. And then you make a plan. You can go as negative, as dark as you want to. And then you prepare that plan. And it works because you go preparing yourself mentally in case that happens. Most of the time it doesn't. But then if it's something really bad happens, then you already have a plan, what you're going to talk about what you're going to do, what your steps are going to. And then you prepare yourself already to go through that route. And more than that, while you're doing all of this thinking and this brainstorming and writing it down, you're honoring your needs by taking control of that situation. Because I think a lot of our spiraling has to do with we don't feel like we have control over things. Then when you prepare for the worst, you just tell yourself, okay, I have a plan and this is how it's going to go. It's the worst thing can happen.
I love how you're giving options, not rules, for how we approach self-care in a different way for stress management. I think it's really nervous system safe, and there's no pressure to be perfect or have it down packed. It's about honoring yourself, your journey, and the person that you were when you were little. And I'd love to bring in the calm process that you were talking about earlier. Here as a simple map carers can use when everything feels a little too much. For listeners hearing about it for the first time, what is the calm process?
So every letter stands for things that we should do all of those steps. So now I'm inviting anyone who's listening in to think about something stressful. And it could be sitting in traffic, or you got a news from doctor, or whatever it is. C stands after control. Can you control the situation? Can you control the traffic? And when you identify that there are some things that you can control, for example, your attitude, you still can take care of your attitude, even if the situation itself you cannot really control. You cannot control other people's emotions, how they're going to act. You cannot control somebody else's decisions or weather or politics. So it may seem like a lot of things you cannot control, but you should not feel hopeless, because there's one person that is still can control. It's you, that you can control your attitude towards what's really happening. And like I gave an example before about the doctors, changing your attitude may change everything in the situation, especially how stressed you will be or you will not. Then you move to the letter A, and A is acceptance or appreciation. I believe every situation has a silver lining, even if the most gruesome one or the most painful one. Like I said, it's important to really look at something from a very point of view of outside and see, okay, well, at the big scheme of things, this is a human experience. Can go as far as that and say, well, there's somehow it's still serving me. Or maybe I don't know what I'm being saved from. There is something in there that at least I'm learning about myself. Mm-hmm. That's how I react in the situation. And then you move to the letter L and M. But before that, if someone has an opportunity to really sit down and think about it and write it down even, or just go through mentally, it's about what actions that you're already taking it. So L stands for limiting. We should limit what does not work. And you know, they say, if you continuously doing the same thing over and over, you cannot expect different results. You need to change something in order to have some different results. And I think this is really the key of asking yourself and identifying what doesn't work, and then asking yourself, why you keep on doing this? And most of the time, it has to do about those loyalties that we just talked at the beginning of our chat. And you're really identifying, like, why I'm still doing this? Maybe because somebody told me to do this. And what if I'll try something else? Because we're getting stuck in the same situation if we continue doing the same thing. So it's time to acknowledge what it is. And also, if we don't want to change it, it's like, what do we think the worst thing that can happen if we will change something? So that is, I think, the core of all of this calm process. And that's why a lot of us getting stressed and burnout and stuck in the same things on repeat. And then when you realize, okay, this is not working for me, the M stands up after multiply. And that's what we need to multiply what works for us. And many times, especially for those who always the givers, we do not celebrate ourselves enough. We do not pay attention what we were doing good. Because if we grew up in the environment that we were not always clapped every time when we do something well, we may think that whatever we're doing is not good enough. So we don't even give credit to ourselves. And that's very important for us to pay attention. What is that we're doing already that is already helping other people very well? How whatever we're doing in that stressful situation that is helping, even small things of thinking, what it would help me right now is the general stress management thing of just going to the restroom and just sitting there for 10 minutes if I can, and just not leaving and just giving that space for myself. But that works for you. So how about we will multiply This even instead of reading a book 1 page, now you can add 2 books per page. Or maybe now you start breathing differently and just giving yourself a good pep talk. Okay, you see that's maybe it's working. So then you a little bit adding more of that. But the point is also to appreciate yourself and give yourself credit that you're actually doing something well in this situation. And because there's so much stress comes from when we're paying attention only to the negative, because we want to fix it and make it better, because it comes from that not having enough self-care and thinking that I am good enough. So we need to really look at the things that we're already doing well. And I recommend everyone, and I think that's Jack Canfield, I heard from him first, write it down the list that you already accomplished. Everything that's amazing. Having a driver license, finishing a 5th grade. So even learning how to read and write, all of those things. So in the moment when you think I am such a loser, I'm not doing enough, you need to read this list and remind yourself that you are doing awesome thing. There's another thing that I love. If you can have, if it has to do about work, from your supervisors or from your coworkers, get a letter about listing 3 things that you are good at, that they think you're good at. And then when you have this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I don't think I have enough power to go on, I don't think I cannot do this anymore, and I'm a loser, then read those letters and remind yourself like, no, you are an amazing person, and what you do, especially if you're taking care of others, that is changing the world. Like I said before, really pay attention and tell yourself, I am doing this and this is actually impacting the world. So whatever you do, this big is not like something that we can discard. But the whole thing going through this whole process is if you're already thinking about and moving through this process, giving you permission to say, oh, I give myself time right now to go through this, and I'm not abandoning you myself. And that's, again, like I said before, building more of that trust that you can handle no matter what will happen, because you're not abandoning yourself anymore.
So, just to confirm with everything that you've said, the CALM process or the framework stands for control, accept, limit, and multiply. And by following these processes, the ultimate outcome is that you respect, honor, and care for yourself in a way that is sustainable, manageable, and positive. I want to ask, how does the CALM process support self-trust, especially for caregivers who feel like they have to stay on alert to be safe and to maintain a safe environment?
It all starts really off, you have to be there for yourself. And most of the time on those situations when we feel we are not safe, is the inner child is being triggered that's not safe. So the best is to tell yourself, and again, if you can look at the mirror, even at your phone, where your own reflection, and really talk to that part of yourself of saying, you're doing your best, you're safe, I'm not going to abandon you. This is all good. We're gonna get through this. You're doing such an amazing job. And say what that part of you is afraid of. Even there's a visualization that you can do. Imagine that that part of you who's afraid right now, not feeling safe, is in front of you. And usually it comes as a child to us. And then you ask that child, what is it you need right now? And if it says most of the time, it's like, I feel not safe, I just need a hug. You can, in your imagination, give them a hug. Or while you're doing this, you even can hug yourself. And that's also will help you with the stress management of having a physical touch and really honoring your needs and not abandoning yourself. And I think that's the most important part.
I think that distinction really matters because self-trust isn't a luxury for caregivers. It's part of our safety plan or the safety that we feel in ourselves. I want to land this in one small step a caregiver can actually do this week. What's one small change a caregiver can make this week to reduce the after appointment hangover without reorganizing their entire lives?
Find something that they're proud of and remind themselves of that. Celebrate yourself. That's the number one thing, because I think a lot don't think they good enough. So when you tell yourself, I am good enough, and even give yourself specific example, empowering yourself and saying, I am making a difference. This is actually working for others. So you can have a feeling of there is something that I'm doing that impacting other people, of you really validating yourself and telling yourself that you're enough. That's important.
And I just want to come back to something now that you've spoken about that, specifically when you were talking about if you are an employee and you reach out to get a letter to ask for the 3 things that you're good at. And sometimes as a caregiver, because of the isolated nature of it, we don't have a boss. We are the boss. I think it's important to reach out to friends or family members who you are connected with, who you have a positive, uplifting relationship with, and ask them to provide you with 3 things that they think you've accomplished and done really well, 3 things that they see you do every day that they are in awe of, because that will help you step out of that spiral if you can't recognize it yourself. If you are stuck in a situation where you are unable to see the good that you do on a day-to-day, sometimes it's important to reach out and ask for someone to reflect back and write it down so that you can read it until you recognize it in yourself. And I think that's a really valuable added asset that you can bring into your world. And I'd love to know, what would you say to the caregiver who thinks reset is a luxury they haven't earned?
Usually I hear there's a time in our lives when we think shoulda, coulda, woulda, but then it's too late. And even if we feel like, well, this is a time for us to take care of ourselves, and it still feels alien because you're just not used to taking care of yourself, and you don't want to take care of your body and your mental state, because we all know if you're not going to take care of it, it's going to come back to you in the illness. Then really think about other people that you're taking care of, because if you are exhausted, you will not be able to pay all the full focus to those that you're taking care of. Let's say you have children, and imagine that you will not rest or take care of yourself enough, and then you will not pay attention enough, and they will run to the street and something happens to them. You will never forgive yourself, right? It's not about you, because we are tribe people. We belong to other people. We want to be in the group because we are so connected. So for those who are feeling guilty and ashamed that they need to take care of themselves, remind yourself that it's not only you. We need a village to do everything. That's why we have villages. So it's 50-50, I will say. It's about you taking care of yourself, but when you do that to yourself, you're helping other people. And more than this, we forget that other people see us too. And especially those who have children, when I especially talk with the mothers and who have daughters, they say, no, I have all these businesses and this, I don't have time for this. I said, imagine that your daughter will grow up and she has her own kids and she has her businesses and everything, and she will tell you that she was stressed out, burnout. What you will tell her? You tell her to do less, right? But guess what? She'll learn how to manage the stress from you. Giving yourself a break, let's say, or helping yourself to taking care of yourself, you are teaching other people around you how they should manage their own stress. More than that, especially in the workplace, for example, where you're involved with other people around. If you give yourself a minute and you just say, okay, I'm going to close the doors and I'm going to for 5 minutes. I'm going to put an alarm on and I'm going to do nothing for 5 minutes now. What happens in those environments when you're courageous enough and say, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to close my eyes, you will inspire other people, your other coworkers, to do the same thing, because you just gave permission to them to take care of themselves too. So you see how you're impacting the environment? It's not only about you. It's about other people, about how they see you, what you do. So you can inspire by taking care of yourself. You can inspire somebody else to take care of themselves.
It's that ripple effect outwards to the external environment that you're creating. And if you could leave our listeners with one sentence to hold on to after a heavy day, what would it be?
It's to look at the mirror and say, I did the best I could. I'm enough and I'm awesome.
I like that sentence very much. I'd love to know where our listeners can find and learn more about your work and the Calm process.
So there's a website, beamazingyou.com, as well as YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos about stress management. And of course, my Calm process book and the workbook are available on Amazon. And for those who want to have a coaching session with me or would like that I talk to the organization or do lunch and learn online or in person, it's all there. Just go to my website, beamazingyou.com, and connect.
I will make sure that all of your links are in the show notes from our episode, and people can connect with you through those links and also through my social media, where we'll be posting and sharing this message. Lolita, thank you so much for this conversation, for the way you bring stress support without turning it into another standard caregivers have to meet. Today, we've talked about why medical days can hit so hard and linger in the body long after the appointment is over, how to recognize the difference between a nervous system that's activated and a person who's not coping, gentle, realistic ways to come down after appointments and hospital days, and how your calm process can act like a simple map when the mind is spiraling and the body is exhausted. If you'd like to explore more of Lolita's work, I will leave all of the links in the show notes, including her calm process resources and where you can connect with her. And if something in this episode resonated with you, your only invitation is this: after your next appointment, even if it's just a phone call, take one gentle reset before you walk back into the rest of your day. Not because you're failing, but because your nervous system deserves care too. Lolita, thank you again for being here. To everyone listening, thank you for spending this time with us. You don't have to hold it all alone. I'm Michelle, and this is Radiant Moments. Until next time, take gentle care of your radiant moments and of yourself.